to now create a HA enabled service. And I created a service template already that has the following attributes. PKI CA template will be our one. And the capabilities you'll see are PED-authenticated HSMs, enterprise performance, which I have 2 of them in my lab. SEC will be disabled, but the HSM partition setup will be an HA group. When I go to create a service, I'll pull down this template, and then I'll have to choose several devices that are going to host each partition. Let's pull this one right here. It'll query the devices that fit the template. You select at least 2. You can choose more. I think in HA group, the total amount is 16 officially supported, if I remember correctly, or was it 32? I'm pretty sure it's 16. And realistically, what you're going to see in the wild in the field is probably that. So I'm going to choose 2 now for demo purposes. Add them both in, assign it to an organization, and you'll see it will be creating a service on 2 HSMs, PED-1 and PED-2 over here, and there'll be 1 partition for each one. And because we are creating 2 services, or 1 service, excuse me, on 2 HSMs and 2 partitions, there's some extra commands. So it's calling the first one, it's creating the service. But you didn't create the HA group yet, right? Because it's on the client side. So the HSMs are not really aware that CCC is going to facilitate that action. I'm going to initialize this as the admin, just for simplicity's sake. Now when we initialize, we're going to have to give it a label, and this is going to be used for both. So let's set up and call it CHA service, same as before, and the roles that we are going to configure. Now we're going to have to use the PED here. This is going to be a PED HA group. So put the remote PED server in, double check our PED server is listening. Crypto Officer challenge. In this case, we're going to give a challenge compared to the regular password. So we have that secondary credential, which is actually we're going to need that for activation purposes, right? So if you have a PED device, you want to log into and integrate your application, you can't just use the PED every time. You're going to have to facilitate some sort of secondary login, which is what the challenge is. Now, when we're going to do this, we need to activate the crypto officer as well. We want to activate this role, so it's going to be cached, so you can log in, as I said, using that challenge and not just the black key or set of black keys. You can do this later, as it's explaining here, but for convenience sake and for automation, you can easily just have this. Now for HA, it has to be activated already. So if it was a standalone partition, I can, as you probably saw from the previous videos, I can do it later on if I really want to. But in this case, I'm going to have to activate it, and it makes things easier for us. Once I click finish, it's going to start the process where I have my handy dandy PED here, and I will have to get access to not only 1 device but 2 devices, but contact this remote PED server and perform all these actions. So first step here is on the first PED device. I'm going to have to do a lot of key management. So first step, so we can actually log in and perform this initialization of roles, we need to get the remote PED set up. So I have the orange key. So I'll put in my orange key and I'll read the RPV that's on there. First set up that tunnel. And if you haven't noticed by now, because all we see here is initializing service and setting up PED, please attend to the PED, or initializing particular role, which you'll see soon, you'll have to really pay attention to what's going on the PED and what actions it's prompting for compared to what's on the screen. So there will be a slight delay, and as you can see, it's informative in initializing the partition and the label. So we'll see that the partition has an appended 00 to it to identify which one it is. And I'm being asked to set up the partition security officer now. So I'll put in my blue key. And this is the more boring part of the video. I'll have to log in, and the only person that can initialize the crypto officer is the partition security officer. So I'll log in as the blue key. I'm going to now configure and initialize the cloning domain. Now, whether I use an existing key set or not doesn't matter in this case, but for the second partition, it's very important. So whatever I set here, whatever keys I use, we're going to want to use the same one on the second partition so we can clone objects back and forth. We finally got to the crypto officer, the black key now, and we're going to set up that black key for the first time. I now logged in again as the newly initialized crypto officer. What happens is that it asks me to change the primary user pin, the primary credentials for the black key, which in this case I'll just keep it as the same key. I'm not going to create a new one. So it does that initial primary login and then changing of the primary credentials, and we'll have to do the same when it actually in the background CCC it logs in and creates the challenge and makes sure that it's not only activated but the challenge was changed to the final value so we can use it. Now you can see on the screen we're activating the crypto officer. So I'll have to log in as a crypto officer and first log in as those primary credentials, and then it's going to apply that challenge. So log in with the challenge that we provided and make sure that it will be activated now. The partition policy as well in the backend is enabled, and it says, okay, we're stopping the remote PED connection. We're killing it. But now we have what? Two partitions, right? Two HSMs. So we'll have to set up a new remote PED session and do this all over again on the other box. On the other HSM, what will happen is we need to reuse the same cloning domain, and I'm going to use the same black key, but technically for HA you don't need to use the same black key. It's convenient, but you need the same cloning domain, the same challenge to facilitate that automatic HA login. So what we're going to do is it's going to set a remote PED to .70, which is the second HSM, and I'll pause the video here and run through all the steps which are more or less the same exact thing. And then afterwards, in a subsequent video, I will cover how to deploy that using the CCC client to your application server.